Hello, all. Game Methuselah. As I was musing over what to discuss this week, I got a question on Twitter from Zipperon Disney. And Zipperon Disney said he was bored hearing all the people out there talking about D&D 101 and how to basically play D&D for your people, how to DM and the like. And he wanted to hear what the best 505 level upper division class D&D tips were. And he addressed it to Mike Merrills, Sly Flourish, and myself. And he might have addressed it to someone else, but a few responses came. Myself, I came up with sort of I think I try to give upper level division education. And then I gave sort of a perfunctory little response that seemed kind of trite, but it was a difficult question to answer. A lot of people piped in. Sly Flourish did, a few others. DC and Sundry actually came up and wrote a treatise on all the things that a DM has to do and how you run your game and how things evolve. And finally, after thinking about it a bit, I came back to him and said, I'm not 100% sure there really isn't anything but 101 level classes. For those of you who've gone to college, you understand that the intro class is where they set down all the basic frameworks of what you're going to learn in oceanography or mathematics or whatever it is you're studying. And from that point on, all the upper division is nuances. And those things were all finer and finer and finer slices of the basic level of what the knowledge is. What you learn in 101 is going to carry you all the way through your full education and most likely be, like rules in a game, the thing you're going to use the most. What you need to do is bring all your game players up to level 101. And then all the higher division stuff is how you take the rules and the game and shape it and make it your own. Now, I always muse about Adventure League, and I tell you, it's a nice way to get into the game, but the problem with it is it never gets above D&D 101. And the reason is it can't. It's a module written to be given out nation or even worldwide and played by everybody. So every DM in the game has to be able to understand how to play it. Every player must be able to function within this refined, module of gaming. And you can't have it stray too far off the path, or what you end up with is something that gets overpowered. There's just been a reset recently with some of the D&D Adventure League items where they've restricted or eliminated or toned down magical items that have been acquired through the game because they have found that they are game breakers. And it's not that they're individually tremendously nasty. The problem is, as I've mentioned in other videos, they're nasty if you have it compared to what everybody else has. Now, on our game with Craig, he's running a module which was very, very, very low magic. It's very much like what 5th edition currently is, I think, proposing you get for magical items. I have a 12th level sword bard who is a fighter. He has a +1 silver rapier, a set of +2 leather armor, and a magic mandolin, and some odds and ends, and some really minor magic items, which effectively are not that powerful. But this is a 12th level character, which in many campaigns, especially the ones I've run, is fairly high level. I mean, he can dish out a lot of damage, and we are now starting to fight some fairly nasty encounters. I'm in the process of rewriting my Teeth of the Dragon. Now, these have been utilized by other game masters like Matt Colville, who utilize them and put their own spin on them. Now, I'm going to give you the originals and sort of how they work within the framework of D&D, which frankly is tough to do because I wrote them originally for the fantasy trip, now trying to convert them into D&D, and these are game-changing artifacts. The idea that you have one sword that is incredibly nasty, but if you get the second or third one also hooked in with these 6 swords that exist, they all start adding powers to each other. They become epically badass, and it becomes a situation that it's hard to control balance. This is where into the upper levels of gaming. When you give these out, and I think in my game mastering, I never gave out more over the years we played, then 3 of the Teeth of the Dragon. Now, they sort of thought they had ideas of where the others were, but they weren't completely convinced they could beat the bad guys who had them, so they never got to those adventures and thusly never acquired the full capacity of what these nasty epic weapons will do. And when I get them out there in the world, you'll be able to see what my original feeling was. A lot of players have adapted it, and there again is where the upper level is. Now, Matt explained after the rollout of the chain the other night, and I don't want to do any spoilers, that situations had happened, and because of the trust and level of knowledge and play and who they're dealing with, it was acceptable to the players. But it was exciting, it was interesting, it was a great introduction to a campaign. It definitely sets the stage for what the level of play is going to be and what is going to be required. Now, Matt, myself, a lot of other really experienced game masters look at the rules as firm suggestions. I mean, there was one person who commented that basically if you have 2 or 3 house rules, you really should look for another rule set that does what you want and go play with that. Well, that works to a great extent. It's what I sort of did. I swayed away from Dungeons & Dragons. I didn't come back until I ended up in the pad group with Matt and his cronies. And I said, great, I'm going to run a campaign. I want to run role-playing for you. I'm going to play the fantasy trip. And they all said, no. We don't want that. We play Dungeons & Dragons. So here I am, not having played Dungeons & Dragons in maybe a decade, and this is what they want to play. So I had to, of course, dig through the rule of the game and play it, and then add my own spin. How they did not go over well with a D&D group that really wanted to stay in D&D 101. They wanted it to all fit square peg, square hole. They don't want to go off the path. It took a lot of playing and a lot of situation in mind, and as Matt pointed out in his game as well, trust from the players that you are playing a good game. You are going to give them a fair shake and a nice ability to win because it's a cooperative story game. The trick really is to understand on upper level play, what do your players want? If they want to play rigid D&D 101 on a fixed rail game, it's really easy. They're not really challenging you. Now, they could play Adventure League. You could run Adventure League. You could go ahead and get some of the great modules now put out by D&D, these books that give you literally an entire campaign in a book. And you can go from one adventure to the next adventure to the next adventure, and you never have to stretch the requirements of yourself or the players in your group. They know what to expect. They know how it's going to go. But if it's going to be upper levels, if it's going to be yours, there's so many other things you as a game master both need to share with your players to get them up to speed and know in your heart it's going to work. But I'm coming out of a different whole era of gaming. I always tell people, and in my old group that I play with now, the people I played with since the 70s who we still role play, I roll up multiple characters. Now, in truth, I never have to tell them. When I sit down to play, they immediately roll up 2 characters. Sometimes they roll up 3. They get 3 characters ready to go, and then they look at me and say, how many characters can we have on this adventure? Given a choice, they might take half a dozen each, because they know my adventures in any of these games are going to be very, very deadly. It's harder when you're running D&D 101 on the rails because players are looking, well, at that challenge rating, we're not likely to run into anything more difficult than this. Now, again, looking at what Matt rolled out, he basically threw that baby and the bathwater out. Started with something that was way above the head of a player and then play it out to provide the great drama and color and background that he's going to want to lay out throughout his games. Now, if you've not watched Matt or if you've not played with Matt, Matt runs a very high-level political game. There's a lot of backstory and machinations going on with all these different NPCs who are all have their own goals. And if you don't necessarily know what goals they have, or if you're not able to find them out somehow, you could be at tremendous disadvantage and end up with things happening that you do not want to happen and you did not expect to happen. It's a very different game at a very, very high level. This is way above D&D 101. This is all new. You're playing Matt Colville's version and realization of this game. Like the people who play my Albion campaign, where you're not playing the standard game. And the players, when they understand this is not 101, rise to the occasion because they know to stand there and fight thinking, well, this must be a fair fight is a big mistake. Because monsters and powerful creatures, in my humble opinion, never got to be monstrously powerful with hordes of gold by being pushovers. It doesn't work that way. When you have epic level encounters, they're not epic level to your level. They're just epic. If you go to the Dragon's Lair at 6th or 7th level and you decide you want to fight this ancient dragon, my advice to you is generate new characters before you go, because the adventure is likely going to be very quick. And this is what you want to do with your players as you move them away. D&D 101, to basically the upper levels of high-level role-playing. Now, talk to your players, get them to understand this. I think everyone in Matt's group understood what to expect, that Matt has a reputation for having you open the front door and the entire dungeon will come to you. You don't have to do a whole lot of exploring, but they are good games and they are very different from what a lot of people have played. And sometimes things are just not forgiving, but that makes a good campaign. Now, you don't want to drag your players necessarily forward. There could be a lot of players out there who are 10th level, 12th level, or higher, who've never played anything but D&D 101. They're going to have a problem if you throw that upper level stuff at them. If you suddenly run a bunch of creatures that aren't out of the book, whose stats don't make sense, they're going to become stunned. But remember, when you're looking for upper division gaming, this is the place to find it. Both here, on Twitter, on Reddit, there's so many good game masters out there talking about what they think a great game is. Now, you may not think it's a great game, but that's the point. You take what's great and you use it. If I tell you something in one of my videos and you go, that old guy is nuts, then don't use it. Maybe bring it up to your players after a game and say, hey, Game Methuselah said this. What do you guys think? They might surprise you and say, hey, that sounds kind of cool. Or they might say, no, please don't throw that at us. We don't want to have to write up new characters because we've been playing with these guys for 6 months and we've become attached to them. You know my feeling on that, or most of you should. It's a fun way to look at gaming. And remember, there's no wrong way. Design the games for what your group wants to do. With me, I always want that sort of Damocles hanging over my head that at any moment I might be generating or utilizing one of my other characters because this one could be dead. Now, death isn't always the end in role-playing games, as I think you've more than likely learned. If you want to see high-level role-playing, start with 101, get everybody up to speed, and then start tweaking. The tweaks you like. Adding the stuff you go, that's very cool. Bring in the things that you want to see. Take the modules and advance upon them. Make it your game, but don't blindside them so much that they're not expecting it. Just let them know, these monsters are going to be really tough. You sure you want to go up to that dragon's lair? There's a big treasure, but And then make it your own in everything else as well. As I've said, give out better treasures. Magic items are the currency of the game. I think you should give out better stuff as your game gets more yours when you step it above 101. And I think that'll make your game better. So at some point you stand there and go, my games are more epic than the ones I see other people doing. That's what you want. You want that feeling where at the end of a campaign, people go to you and go, that was the best thing I've ever seen. And once you've done that and you can do it and get that excitement and have that level of really good high level gameplay, and at that point, you're a master level DM and people will enjoy your games. And then maybe you can jump into somebody else's game. Hopefully they don't know who you are, and you can start to have that fun in their games as well. So, hope this was of some value. Watch what's out there. Learn as we go. Next time I think I'm going to throw out a Mambo or a paint thing or something I'll bore you to death about things that I really love. But until then, fight to be devils, fight, for I hate peace. Game on.